Hello viewers, you're welcome to my channel. Still your own boy MC Bernardino. Thank you very much for always staying tuned to Canada Immigration with MC Bernardino, where I always dissect information about Canada immigration policies and the latest update. So on today's episode, have you been trying to apply to Canada for study permit and you've been turned down? You don't know how to go about it, what documents you require. Were you refused? Are you thinking of what you can do to appeal it? Do you know you can actually appeal? All right, on today's episode, I will be telling you the reasons why study permits have been refused by Canada immigration and what you can actually do about that. So you want to stay tuned and go on tight while I dissect this to you. And don't forget our Think About This segment, where I always give it to you, you think about it, and you always act on it. All right, let's just quickly run through the disclaimer. Like I always say, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a consultant. I'm just doing this out of my own volition. So if you feel you want to make your own immigration decision, don't just limit to this channel alone. You're free to do your own additional research. Just add information from this. And if you feel you have any question, any concern, hit me up. I'll try as much as possible to respond to you as soon as possible. So you want to hang on tight.
Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Okay, let me quickly give you this caveat. So the reasons that I'm giving you today is not 100%, like I'm not an immigration officer, right? I'm just giving you based on the experience I've had from people, the feedback they got, and that's why I'm sharing this with you guys. The number one reason why study permits are being refused is insufficient fund. I can't overemphasize that more than enough. Insufficient fund. Before you can apply for your study permit, you need to convince the immigration officer that you have enough capital to bankroll your study, living, you're feeding everything while you study. So let me quickly share this feedback I got from a friend when he was refused his study permit. This was what the immigration officer said. I am not satisfied that you have sufficient fund, including income or assets, to carry out your studied purpose in Canada, or to maintain yourself while in Canada and to effect your departure. So one thing I always tell my applicants is this: when you want to apply for your study permit, it is better for you to pay minimum of 2 semester tuition fee. That shows purpose on your own part. That shows conviction on your own part to convince the immigration officer that you are really intending to study and this is the tuition fee. Apart from paying the tuition fee, I always advise you that if it is possible for you to open a bank account and put money in it to show and print the bank statement showing that this is how much you're going to use for your feeding allowance, your housing allowance, your transport allowance, prove that too. You need to have enough finance in your bank account to show that actually you can pay for the tuition fee and you are competent enough, and that is able to convince the immigration officer that truly you want to study and you have the financial capacity. So I can't overemphasize that more than enough. Try as much as possible to build the bank statement and make it substantial. The second reason I'll be sharing with you on why your study permit could be refused by Canada immigration officer is lack of sufficient ties to back home. Don't forget that when you're applying for your study permit, you're trying to convince the immigration officer that when you're done studying, you'll be reverting back to your home country to apply the knowledge you have gained in Canada. So you need to prove that. You need to be able to convince him or her, the immigration officer this time around. Let me share with you the feedback I got from one of my viewers. The response was that I am not satisfied that you will leave Canada at the end of your stay, as stipulated in subsection 216 into brackets 1 of the IRPR based on the purpose of your visit. So it could be visit, it could be study permit. That was why his application was denied. So what am I trying to suggest to you now is that if you are coming to Canada on a study trip or a visitor's trip, you need to be able to convince the immigration officer treating your file that you will be reverting back home. And how do you prove that? Take for instance a married couple. So if the husband is applying, your wife and your kids back home could be your tiles. That shows that when you're done studying, you'll be reverting back to your family. But the moment you apply for everybody at the same time and you're coming into Canada, then that shows that you people just want to migrate to Canada through that process. And that might not be convincing enough for the immigration officer. Another thing again that you could use to prove a tile is that, do you have a job? You have a job. If you have a job back home, your employer can actually give you a letter stating that they are sponsoring your trips, your study to Canada, so that you can come back to the company and help in the growth and development of the company. So with that letter on the letterhead signed, that can actually be a tile showing the immigration officer that you actually have a job back home that you will revert back to when you come back. Another thing again that you can use to proof tile is if you have a business, if you have a company that is thriving very well, you can put the document information about this company while you apply for your study permit visa or your visitor's visa. With that, you can use it to show clear ties to back home, because you need to convince the immigration officer that you will be reverting back home when you're done study. I can't overemphasize that. And many applications have been refused because of insufficient ties to back home. So if you feel you have any question, you have any concern based on what I've said so far, feel free to drop it in the comment section. I will respond as soon as possible. For those who have subscribed to this channel, kudos to you. Those who have not subscribed, please subscribe to this channel now, because without you, this channel is actually nothing. So number 3 on why study permits have been refused by Canada immigration will be a wrong program chosen by applicants. So take for instance, hypothetically, your degree is in banking and finance. You have 5-6 years whatever experience in the banking industry, and when you apply to study in Canada, you decided to choose nursing as a course you want to come into Canada to study. So when the immigration officer, when he or she sees it, he actually immediately knows that it doesn't work out, because your degrees in banking, your banking experience, and now you want to come into Canada to study nursing. How does that relate? It cannot be reconciled. That might be another reason why your study permit might be refused. So what am I trying to say in essence is that for you to correct this, you need to choose the course you want to come into Canada to study, need to align with your background, need to align with your experience. So you need to choose something that actually aligns to what you have done or the experience that you have gained in the past. That is the only way that you can use additionally to convince the immigration officer that you are truly coming into Canada to study, and why you chose that course is because of your own personal development and enhancement. So you want to address that, because that might be the loophole while your application might be refused by Canada immigration. One reason why your application can be refused by Canada immigration is misrepresentation or poor documentation. So when I say misrepresentation, what that simply means is that probably in the past, before you apply for your study permit, you have initially applied for visitor's visa or some other application in the past, and this time around, when you try to apply for your study permit, the information you have this time around differs from what you initially have in the past, like maybe your age, falsification of some documents. That can actually lead to refusal, and it can actually lead to being banned from applying or coming into Canada. So you have to be very careful the information you put online. Even if you're using agency, you have to be consistent with the information you use in applying, so that you will guide against being banned from applying to Canada. So when I talk about improper documentation, what that simply means is that when you're applying for your study permit, you need to make sure that all the checklist you fill the checklist and you submit all the required documents. Your international passport, your passport photograph, the study permit application form needs to be properly filled. Your biometric needs to be done. So all this information, you need to make sure that you do it properly in order to increase your chance of getting your study permit. Because if you don't do it properly, your visa can be refused, and coming into Canada can be a very big problem. So what I advise in this case is, if you feel you can't do it yourself, it is better to seek the advice of agencies. There are so many agencies that can do this for you. Actually, it's paid agency, but you need to seek for the right one in order to increase your chances of coming into Canada and your study permit being granted. Yes, another reason why your application can be refused by Canada immigration is ingenuity of your acceptance letter. Don't forget that when you're submitting your application for study permit, you need to put in all the documents, including the acceptance letter that you received from the school that you're going into in Canada. So you need to make sure you do thorough finding to ensure that the school you're going into in Canada is on the designated learning institution list, DLI. I will link in the video down below. So you need to check the school, make sure that the school is one of the approved schools in Canada. Because if you come into a school that is not approved by Canada immigration or by Canada government as where you can actually come in that can actually receive international students, then you have just succeeded in wasting your time. So you need to check that, make sure you do all your findings before you apply for your study permit visa. And make sure that you include all the necessary documents, your acceptance letter, your tuition fee, the receipt that you've paid. Everything needs to be included before you apply for your study permit, because if the immigration officer find any of this information wanting, your study permit visa application can actually be denied. So if your study permit visa application is denied, what are the options you have? One, you can apply for reconsideration, simply meaning that you can apply to Canada Immigration for your case to be reconsidered if you feel that you have a genuine reason while your application is okay and while you feel you should not be refused. So you can appeal for reconsideration, so meaning that the immigration officer will reconsider your application. Probably there's something he or she might have neglected on the first consideration. They can actually look it again on the second time, and it's not 100% sure that you will get it this time around, but you can actually try your best. The second option you might want to look to is appealing to Canada courts, appealing that your application should be reviewed. If you strongly believe that your application was okay, everything you need, you applied, you submitted everything, and you feel you should be given, you can appeal to the court, any court in Canada, for them to consider you. So what the judge simply do is the judge will appoint another immigration officer to look into your file, and it's not 100%, just like I said earlier on. It doesn't mean that this time around they will give you, but they might want to give you a second option, second trial, to see if truly they neglected something. And if you're lucky, you might be granted. If not, or the second time, you might still be refused. The third option you have is submitting a new application. So this option is just about, so the first time when you were denied, all the reasons why you were denied, you need to address it this time around. So probably is it because of the finance or tiles, you need to address those areas and reapply this time around for a fresh application. So what it requires is you have to pay new money, and you have to do due diligence this time around. So on the second trial, you might stand a chance. It's not 100%, but if you address some of those issues, you might be given this time around. So this is what I always advise. This third option is what I advise my viewers to try, because if you address the initial red flag, you might be given on your second trial. Okay, so in summary, I hope you understood everything I've told you on reasons why study permits applications are rejected in Canada and how you can actually address it. So if you feel you have any question, you have any concern, drop it in the comment section below. I will revert back to you as soon as possible. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you have subscribed to this channel, thanks for subscribing. Share this video with your loved ones. If you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Kindly subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much. All right, on the Think About It segment, I have a quote for you which says, yes, study sucks, but trust me, not more than failure does. That simply means that truly the process for applying for your study or studying process on its own, it's a very, very rigorous process, but it is worth it because failure is never an option. All right, it's been real. I've been keeping it real with you. Thank you very much for staying tuned. Still your own boy, MC Bernardino. Stay out of crime and be nice. Bye-bye.